Like many people, I have been primarily a handheld gamer for many periods of my life. Back in Venezuela, while my gaming life started with a Nintendo 64, a good chunk of my memories are attached to the Game Boy. The entry cost was lower, the games were cheaper, and it was self-contained, so I could play privately at any time without taking space of the one and highly demanded family TV we had. When I went to college, since I decided to go to the one campus that was on the other side of the city, and since that city at the time had one of the worst traffics in the whole world, I would spend pretty much all day on campus. Not just for class, but also social, study, and free time. So my laptop and my DS were literally my lifeline, two of my most personally valuable items. Hell, this is why I was psyched at the idea of Nintendo focusing their efforts on its handheld, as I always thought those were some of their best products. As I shifted more towards PC gaming after graduating and moving countries, I found myself slightly frustrated by the lack of viable handheld options for PC. The overfocus on high graphics and high frame rates were limiting the places PC gaming could go. And since it is my vision that PC gaming is not only for everyone but for all spec levels, some creative low spec settings and improvements in integrated graphics could lead to a much more interesting future. Now, things have changed, and they continue to change, and it is amazing. I am Lowspec Alex, welcome to the Lowspec Gamer, brought to you by Skillshare. Now if you're new to my videos, you might be surprised to discover this is a thing that is already happening thanks to a Chinese company called GPT that has taken the crowdfunding world by storm. When GPT hit the market with the original GPT-Win device, I squarely put my weight behind it. It was an imperfect device with a lot of promise, but I desperately wanted this sort of product to become popular. I wanted the idea of handheld low-spec devices to become an accepted and mainstream way to play PC games, as it has become on consoles. While GPT has continued iterating, succeeding, and perfecting their growingly expensive ideas, the next step I really wanted to see was other newer or smaller companies joining the fray. The way I see it, for PC handhelds to become a mainstream thing, either two things can happen. The niche becomes big and competitive enough that even big players start to take notice, or it organically grows enough to reach a new audience. This, I think, cannot happen with just one company succeeding. Making a new handheld PC is hard. Developing any hardware product as a startup is extraordinarily difficult. And newer companies don't have the luxury of learning as they go, but the meteoric rise of AMD APUs on laptops has presented an interesting opportunity. If you want to make a handheld that runs PC games, you have to use integrated graphics. And if you want to do that, you have two options: Intel graphics and AMD graphics. To this date, the handhelds out there that I know of are using Intel graphics. GPT famously went back on their decision to switch to AMD due to issues at the support and driver level. And attempts from other startups to do AMD handhelds, even with the support of AMD, have ended catastrophically. I'm going to regret mentioning this at all, am I? This is why I was a bit skeptical when some of you started massively telling me about the Aya Neo, a Ryzen APU power handheld poised to compete directly with GPT. For the last few weeks, this has been my primary gaming machine, as you will know if you have seen the fact that I keep posting images and stories about it on my Instagram. And I'm starting to wonder if we finally have multiple horses in this race. We now seem to have a world when we have three really good handhelds, each one powered by one of the three main GPU makers. And these three devices are all definitely sharing a lot of inspiration. So it's on their differences where a lot of interesting observations come together. The Switch is peak Nintendo, joyful but universal, fun but simple. Except for the freaking part where the sticks keep drifting. The GPT-Win 3 is equally peak GPT. Coming through their recent history of Mac-like mini computers, the grey or black design made for a cool looking device that, while ready to game, will not look out of place in the hands of any elegant gamer. The Aya Neo, or at the very least the Founders Edition that I got access to, is like, fuck that. There was a weird, marvelous time during the 90s where the aesthetic of the cool gamer was less like the racer car inspired gaming aesthetics of our time, and more about cool see-through plastic. This sadly never took hold, but the Founder Edition of the Aya Neo seems to come from an alternate future where that is the norm for gamers, and the addition of some simplified controls for lights within the case cement the deal for me. I'm not super convinced about all the signage it has pointing out the different ports and characteristics of it. I will probably be keener to show off this device to people if it was just clear plastic. But the appeal of being able to see within the handheld is undeniable, and it leaves some interesting places to certify that this handheld is officially having a low-spec processor with ultra-low graphics. I could not have picked a better device to debut this new design. When you put these three devices together, it is interesting how each company clearly responded to Nintendo's behemoth of a successful device in a different way. Both GPD and Aya chose the same general shape. Speakers at the bottom with an USB Type-C port and an air outtake on top. But GPD went for the more elegant, smaller, even more portable device with an extremely cool looking but ultimately questionable touch keyboard, and an inverted layout on the right side of the device to clearly benefit twin-stick usage at the cost of button comfort. The Aya Neo went for a bigger, beautiful screen with a slightly higher resolution, although the unconventional aspect ratio will letterbox a lot of games. Its similar button layout is more comfortable to use most of the time, but just like the Switch, it is a bit of a pain to handle with dual stick controls on games where that is important. And no secret hidden keyboard anywhere. GPD went with an extra USB Type-A on top, while Aya went for two extra Type-Cs, one just for USB and the other with full support for video out and charging. In most day-to-day use, I miss the full USB of the Wind 3. USB Type-C has come a long way, but a full-size A is just too useful for peripherals and hard drives for moving files around. Aya knows this, I believe, since the device came with a couple of chunky USB Type-C to A adapters, which you can carry with you, I guess, but I'm 100% going to lose next time I travel, so I am not too convinced yet. Hashtag I did not choose the dongle life. But, and this is important, the fact this extra port over here works for charging is a detail that I did not expect to appreciate this much. One of the most dumbfounding design decisions of the Nintendo Switch was to have the charging port in a place where there's no way you can charge it while playing on a kickstand or a base. I know this is because it was the only logical place to put it so you can connect the dock. The Wind 3 did the same, probably for the same reason, so it can work better with a dock, or simply because they were following the lead of the Switch without thinking too much about it. But having the Aya Neo with two charging ports just makes life easier if you want to charge while playing. This is a stupidly niche thing to care about, but yeah, I love it. One sacrifice was made here: Thunderbolt support. As far as I know, there are no current laptops with AMD CPUs that support Thunderbolt, while Intel has been integrated the Thunderbolt hardware inside their new laptop CPUs. This gives the Wind 3 an additional advantage as a docked-out console that can connect to an external GPU to play on a TV or monitor. However, since GPU docks and Thunderbolt 3 hubs are dramatically expensive, I suspect this is a loss not many people will be upset about, but it does give GPD one key advantage. And that leads nicely into how it plays. What does a change to AMD bring to the table? Getting a straight answer on which is the most powerful machine is tricky. The Aya Neo comes with a 6-core APU, with base and pro versions only changing in disk capacity, putting it somewhere between the i5 and the i7 version of the Wind 3. Most of the direct comparisons I could find with the i7 version will suggest that it slightly overtakes the Aya Neo. I only have the i5 version, and in my experiences, in some cases the Wind 3 is slightly faster, while other times the Aya is much faster. These are clearly different GPU architectures, but they are surprisingly comparable, at least for the games I play. Interestingly, the difference that I care the most about were drivers. I have made it no secret in past videos that I'm seriously rooting for Intel Xe graphics because I want there to be more competition in the integrated GPU space. But the thing that frustrates me the most about Intel Xe is how it carries forward some of the frustrating issues of the Intel drivers. Half of it is probably that developers aren't testing games with Intel drivers because they are just only now getting to this level of performance, but the effect it has is that some AAA games just crash more frequently or experience some rather nasty visual glitches. AMD APUs come with the more tested mainline AMD drivers, which means I can finally freaking play Assassin's Creed Valhalla on a handheld. Odin be praised! Now I might even be able to actually finish this game. This is the lowest settings at 70% resolution and 50 watt on full screen resolution and a 30 FPS log. And it works great. Considering this is a very heavy AAA game that will be very difficult to see ported on a handheld like the Switch, this is frankly amazing, and this is no joke how I plan to play and finish this game. This was also a great opportunity to show some of the interesting TDP shenanigans of this device. For those unfamiliar with what that term means, TDP is the maximum heat that a chip can output, and often the true limiter of performance on mobile components. At higher TDPs, you get more heat, more performance, and a shorter battery life. Thanks to the app Renoir Mobile Tuning, of which I interviewed the creator in a past video, you can very easily change the TDP of a Ryzen laptop APU while it is running. It is often used to squeeze more performance out of laptops while they're connected to power. But for the Aya Neo, the increase, while substantial, was not as much as I expected. It seems 15 watt is a bit of a sweet spot for this device in order for comfortable handheld mode. What to pick seemed to be a controversial question, but I decided to stick with it to see how far it will go. Another example of the driver advantages is Persona 5 Strikers. I bought and started playing this game on the Win3 only to discover that it will crash randomly after about 20 to 30 minutes of play. After losing a lot of progress twice in a row, I ended up almost quitting the game until now. Both devices are perfectly able to play this game at 30 FPS on medium settings, 15 watt and at a full resolution. But thanks to the Ryzen inside the Aya Neo, the game just doesn't crash as often. Next, Control. This one had me a bit nervous because on previous videos on entry-level AMD laptop APUs, I had to boost the TDP a fair bit to get to 30 FPS. But on that 15 watt limit, on regular low settings and full resolution, it kept it close enough. Even on the heavier fights, I could reach. Control is yet another game that I personally would have not expected to see on a handheld, so when I'm up for a replay, this is likely where I will go. Cyberpunk is another interesting one. While the game is still far from being fully fixed, it tends to get too crashy on Intel Xe graphics, and so makes for an excellent example of when AMD drivers just get ahead, all while keeping close to a 30 FPS lock on the lowest settings, with no special tweaks. Portable Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order in 15 watt was another unexpected victory, considering the performance issues this game has on its base version. And yet, base console 30 FPS performance is perfectly within its capabilities. But Alex, you might ask, impatiently skipping to later parts of the video, is it better than the GPD win or not? Has AMD once again won? Well, that depends. It sometimes has surprised me a lot during my time just how compatible these two devices are. I was not super hopeful that someone might catch up to GPD, and Aya just seemed to have nailed it in the first try. Which is amazing. Both devices are so similar and yet differentiated enough to make for an actual interesting competition. They both have comparable performance, they both have high quality controls, although the GPD Win3 triggers are analog and the Ayas are not, worth mentioning, and both have shockingly similar crowdfunding prices in the base model, which a lot of people again will say is too much for a handheld, but just proves my point from previous videos that no startup can do cheaper than this with off-the-shelf components. Unless they make some Galaxy Brain ecosystem move that allows them to sell the devices at a cost while controlling a lot of the supply chain like Nintendo does, that is not going to change. Also, no doubt Aya had to pull some tricks to appear like the slightly cheaper options. Like for example, not packing a charger, which sure, works if you already have a USB Type-C laptop, but considering how amazing the tiny 60 watt charger included in the Win3 is, that lack kinda hurts. I use this guy as my everything charger for the living room all the time. Another thing Aya did to be slightly cheaper and probably easier to manufacture is not include any physical keyboard options. This is a weird thing for me to comment since I did make fun of the photogenic but not fantastically feeling keyboard of the GPD Win3, but boy, anytime I am outside of a game in the Aya Neo, I just reach out for the USB adapter and keyboard and mouse, which is not an amazing experience. Look, it has a stopgap solution that is decent for a pinch. There's a dedicated button for an on-screen keyboard, and they link you to software you can use to map controllers, but it is clunky and really makes me miss the simplicity of flipping a switch and flicking open a keyboard. Never in my life I thought I would miss that keyboard, but except for Steam's really good big screen mode, most launchers are painful to navigate on a touchscreen. This is a reality all early PC handhelds are going to have to grapple with. The Aya Neo does have one thing I really like, dedicated buttons for Windows functions, like the game bar, the Windows button, or the task manager. This seems super silly on paper, but the number of times I have had to reach for this button reminded me just how often you have to emergency exit some games. You gotta love PC gaming. The Aya Neo is slightly heavier, but its bigger size makes it more comfortable to hold once you get used to the extra weight. Although as usual, I have big hands, which always makes my life harder on smaller handhelds. If you have more regularly sized hands, you probably do not have the grievances I have with the Wind 3, and therefore the Aya Neo will be less surprising. Look, there's not a clear winner, and I'm kinda happy with that. I want this to stop being some niche idea, and I want people to have access to comparable options. If anything, GPD's long-time experience might prove to give them a win in the crowdfunding level. Aya is still an improving company, and crowdfunding campaigns often go terribly wrong, especially for hardware products. And while GPD has delivered over and over again, only time will tell if Aya is up to the task. If anything, I'm glad my skepticism for this device amounted to nothing, and that I have yet another excuse to convince people that low-end integrated GPU performance matters, and that PC gaming is not always about ultra everything. In fact, if you're a fan of my more ultra low everything videos, you might be interested to discover that I have made a course on the fundamental basic process I follow when I start research for doing any of my game tweaking videos. It does not answer every question about any game, otherwise it will not take me months to make some of these videos, but it can get a complete novice into the right path. My course is just one of the many you can find in Skillshare, this video sponsor, an online learning community for creatives. Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people on topics including illustration, design, photography, video, freelancing, and so much more. I choose to do a Skillshare course after benefiting myself from what I could learn in the platform. Ever since I got introduced to Skillshare, it has been my place to go to improve everything from the color of my videos to the quality of the images in my Instagram. Since I can often find a course on what I'm looking for that is less than an hour and includes a project, I am almost always able to squeeze them into my chaotic schedule. Accomplishing growth is extremely satisfying, and Skillshare online classes make it possible. The first 1,000 people to click on the link in the description get a free trial on the premium membership, so you can get my course or any course for that matter and get started with learning. I seriously regret not taking time before to hone my craft and actually start making my content closer to my vision. Don't wait, learn. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and you for watching.